Good afternoon, my dear students. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about William Shakespeare. The life of William Shakespeare. He was born in 1564 and 1616. So let's start our lecture. Theater and the drama of the Renaissance. We're going to talk about Shakespeare's life and the creative activities, periodization of Shakespeare's works, and Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. So main concepts: the mystery, the miracle, morality, the pagan, the theater. So theater and the drama of the Renaissance. The mystery were placed dramatized episodes from the Bible, and the miracle were placed episodes taken from the lives of saints. Morality plays were allegorical and dedicated to the struggle of the various virtues and vices for the human soul. The pagans, they were pantomimes reenacting episodes from the history of that particular city. These pagans were the source of the historical plays for which the English Renaissance drama is famous. So, by the middle of the 16th century, there were companies of strolling actors who performed in town squares, in yards, and in the manners of the nobility. Many of these companies, enlisted as servants of some peer, of course only nominally, began to settle down. In 1566, the company of the Earl of Residence men built the first regular playhouse designed especially for performances, and called a theatre. A Greek word never used in England before. It was open to the sky except for a sheltered gallery on three sides, and the stage was a large raised platform that came out into the audience like a sort of peninsula. No women were allowed to act, and all the female parts in place were taken by boys. The first actress in England appeared after the Restoration of 1660. William Shakespeare early years. William Shakespeare's early years. So he was born on April 23, 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon in England, and his father John Shakespeare owned a shop at the Globe maker and also held several government positions, including mayor of Stratford. And his mother's name was Mary Adeline, and he was the third child of eight children. He received excellent education with heavy focus on grammar and literature at the King's New School. William Shakespeare, marriage and family. He was married at age 18 to Anne Cataway. She was 26, and the first child was a daughter, and Susanna, who was born in 1583, the twins Hamlet and Judy. They were born in 1585. Hamlet died at age 11. William Shakespeare lost years. The period between 1585 and 1592 is known as the lost years because there are no documentary records of Shakespeare's activities. He moved to London around 1591 and became an actor, and he worked with the Lord Chamberlain's company of players later known as the Kingmen. So William Shakespeare's late years. He returned to Stratford around 1610, and where he lived as a country gentleman and wealthy. He was wealthy, owned one of the largest homes in town, Shakespeare's house, Stratford-on-Avon. So in the photo you can see the Shakespeare's house, Stratford-on-Avon, on the right. So let's continue. William Shakespeare's works of literature. Along with acting, he also wrote some of the most renowned and studied literature written in the English language. He wrote 154 sonnets and also 37 plays, comedies, tragedies, and historical dramas. The first collected edition of Shakespeare's plays was published in 1623. Works of literature. Shakespeare's conceptions were friendship, love, family, betrayal, and death. So he worked on the friendship, on love, on the family, betrayal, and the death. So let's continue. Comedies. William Shakespeare's comedies. Here let us breathe and have the institute, a course of learning and the ingenious studies. The Taming of the Shrew. William Shakespeare's comedies were All Well That Ends Well, As You Like It, Comedy of Errors, Measure for Measure, Midsummer Night's Dream, Taming of the Shrew, Much Ado About Nothing, Twelfth Night, Merchant of Venice. Tragedies. Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, Romeo and Juliet, King Lear. Historical dramas. King Henry V, King John, Richard II, Richard III. So, William Shakespeare's works of literature. His vocabulary was huge, somewhere between 700,000 and 34,000 words. The estimated vocabulary of an educated person today is around 15,000 words. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, Shakespeare introduced nearly 3,000 words into the English language. Influence on English language. Shakespeareisms. Author's translation. What's a piece of work is a human. Что за мастерское создание человек? Латинский, yes. Hamlet. Brevity is the soul of wit. Brevity is the soul of wit. Author's translation was a краткость сестра таланта. Curiosity killed the cat. Любопытство до добра не доведет. As is all is well that ends well. Все хорошо, что хорошо кончается. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Не все в порядке в датском королевстве. A fool's paradise. Мир фантазий. Salad days. Молодо зелено. So, let's continue. Elizabethan age. Shakespeare lived and wrote during what is known as the English Renaissance, which lasted from about 1485 through the 1660s, and the period is also known as Elizabethan age, named after Queen Elizabeth, who ruled England from 1603. So, my dear students, let's continue. Globe Theatre. Shakespeare and the Lord Chamberlain's men performed at the Burbage Theatre until 1599, when they built their own playhouse, the Globe. Shakespeare referred to the Globe as the Sweden O, and a term that led scholars to believe it was a circular building. Globe Theatre. Attending Shakespeare Theatre was quite different from attending theatre today, which is thought of as very quiet and austere. In Elizabethan England, it was a noisy, popular gathering place for people of all ages and from all walks of life. Drinking and eating were permitted in the pit, and which often became very noisy. If a spectator didn't like a particular character or scene, he or she would feel free to hiss or blow or throw anything he or she might have on hand. And the original city was destroyed by fire in 1613, and it was rebuilt in 1614, closed in 1642, and demolished in 1643. And a modern reconstruction of the original globe, named Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, opened in 1997. Periodization of Shakespeare's creative activities. Period 1. The first period, dating from the beginning of his career to 1594, and may be called the period of apprenticeship. And the plays of that period were written under the influence of the university wits, and they are cruder in their stagecraft and the psychology than his late works. However, we must admit that one play written during that time, Richard III, remains one of his most popular and most frequently staged works. In 1590-1594, these plays were characterized by a variety of different genres and moods, stories, different types of comedies and tragedies. So blank verse where the line ends at the end of the sentence or at a strongly marked pause, and quite a lot of rhymed lines. Simplicity, there was no great complexity of imaginary. Period 2. Period 2. During the second period, from the 1594-95 to up to 1600, Shakespeare wrote plays belonging mainly to two dramatic genres: stories, historical or chronicle plays, and comedies. The two tragedies written during those years, Romeo and Juliet and Julius Caesar, differ greatly from his major tragedies. The former, one of his most popular and frequently produced plays, is a true masterpiece, but his treatment of the material places it apart from his great tragedies. Julius Caesar, in its construction, resembles a history rather than a tragedy, and the period is characterized by mature style with more flexible syntax and rhythm, more concentrated imagery, and a more forceful characterization, a mixture of comedies and history plays. The period 3, characterized by the so-called problem plays, a term used by late 19th and century critics who found it difficult to detect Shakespeare's intentions, difficult to interpret somber in tone. So, period 4, during that period, Shakespeare wrote Greek tragedies showing a mode of thought quite unlike Greek tragedy or early English tragedy. The period AD noted by a fully developed style. So, period 5, the Shakespeare wrote the romances, mysteries, miracles, or reconciliation plays, such as the Pyrrhus, Cymbeline, the Winter's Tale, the Tempest. There was little of that partial realism of the tragedies. His tragedies were transformed into a reconciliation of the opposing elements. The most prominent of the period's writings were Shakespeare's sonnets, namely 154 sonnets published in 1609. They were written early in 1592-1599. There are 4 themes in his sonnets: and society, art, friends, and the love to dark lady. Sonnets from 1 to 126 addressed to a friend, a man, and the remainder to a woman called dark lady. Sonnets. A sonnet is a poem consisting of 14 lines divided into 2 quatrains and 2 tercets, or it is 3 and final couplets. Those sorts of sonnets were written and published during 1590s. In those years, the poets considered love to be the only suitable theme for the sonnet. Shakespeare wrote a cycle of 154 sonnets. He introduced new contents into the traditional form of 14 lines. His songs are real dramas in miniature because they are no less deep in thought and that feeling than his plays.